New reports that the Habs and Kings could be en route to a big goalie trade, with one source saying Cayden Primeau could be on the move. That plus, you thought we were done with the Slav stats. We're not. We're going to show you his last 5 games, and a single stat that shows his improvement might be even better than we thought, all in this episode of Habs Digest featuring DrewDekes. Guys, before we get into the video, shout out to Drew for being here. Go subscribe to his channel. You guys all know him, I'm sure. Fantastic creator. Go check his channel out now before we get into the video. But with that all said, time to hop into this, and we got to talk first about the Habs D-man situation. Yes, we're going to talk about the trades and Slafkovsky, but first things first, this is a topic that's been it's been a hot topic in Habs land. Drew, I know you mentioned this a couple of videos ago, but like the Habs defensemen are almost all too good, and you can see like the lower mid-pack Canadiens are second in the league in goals from their defensemen. They're at 25 and first is the Avalanche Canadiens with 23, and they don't have, like they say, a Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes type player. But what they do have is a lot of depth. And when we talk about someone like a Jaden Struble, we talk about even David Savard, who's been showing up really well, and Jordan Harris, who's apparently on this road trip, it's like there's a lot of factors here. And Drew, I'm going to go to you first. Like, who do you think goes? Like, what? Because this is just kind of becoming almost a problem with too much depth, is it not?
It's a great problem, right, boys? I mean,
That's true.
it's a good problem to have. Same with the goalie depth, right? That's how I see it right now. I think that we would wish for the same problem in the coming seasons with our forward depth, and like, okay, like we have too many guys and we don't know where to put all these players because we're so good now. But that's in the years to come, of course. But in terms of the logjam at defense right now, I mean, it's also injury riddled. It's also Arber Xhekaj, as we know, in Laval, which I think right now Gustav Lindstrom is still with the Canadiens and he's not been playing the last few games. So, with that being said, I think he might be the guy, but he has to clear waivers, from what I understand, to go back down to Laval. So are they willing to let go of a guy who played decently well? I think he got his footing the more he played with the Canadiens, and then eventually even scored a couple of goals too, which doesn't hurt. And like you said, Josh, on defense, I mean, second in the league for defense goals. I mean, that's not something I think any of us expected going into this season, right? So it's a compliment to Stefan Robidas as well on the defensive side of things, Martin St. Louis, the whole coaching staff. But it's a good problem to have. And I think with with Jordan Harris getting healthy again, a smart young player like him, is he part of the long-term solution with the Canadiens? I don't know, but I think that the way that these guys have been playing, I mean, Justin Barron, he's taken a step. Mike Matheson is leading the way pretty well. Jaden Struble, there's a guy who's just stepped in and looked like he fit in right away. I mean, I have no complaints about the way he's played. There's room for growth in a good way, but he's come out looking like a mature, steady defenseman that you can't take out of the lineup right now, boys. I don't know.
It's really so true. And to be honest, like, I feel like right now, like a left-handed defenseman and a right-handed defenseman, a very good chance that both of those get moved before this trade deadline coming up. Because, I mean, this is what we have already without even looking at, like, the pipeline down the future, right? Like, we got Lane Hudson coming up very shortly. We also have, David Reinbacher coming in next year as well, right? So you have to feel like we're going to have to be making some moves for these guys really soon. That NCAA's season's going to be finishing before we know it. So definitely, is Jordan Harris the guy to go? Is Kovacevic? You got to feel like either a Kovacevic or a Savard, very high likelihood that one or two of those players, getting moved before this trade deadline coming up.
Yeah, that's the trouble too, that Jordan Harris is also not waiver exempt anymore. So it's like there's just so many decisions to make, so little time, but you got to think Kent Hughes and co are going to be looking at least maybe on the horizon before this trade freeze, which we're going to get into in a bit, hits the Habs. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But let's transition into a bit of Juraj Slafkovsky stuff, because it's always fun to talk about Slav. And of course, in our last video, we were highlighting a lot of the expected stats, expected goals for, high danger chance percentage with Slav on the first line. But it doesn't end there. Take a look at this. This is Slav's last 5 games, and I want to direct your eyes to the time on ice. 19 and a half minutes, 22 minutes. He's had a game or two where he's led the entire team and forwards, entire forward group for time on ice. And he has just been really, really good. And actually, Nick Suzuki said today, he's like, hey, he's doing a lot of the great work for this top line, and his point production is going to come. But one thing that I've noticed, Drew, is that Slafkovsky's getting a lot more faith put in him, especially on the defensive end. We've seen Marty leave him out there in like intense defensive situations. And as Marty has said too, he said, I've never, like a 19-year-old doing this, it's almost unprecedented, and it speaks to how fast he's growing, that within, it feels like 2 or 3 weeks, his responsibility level has gone to like arguably one of the most, responsible guys on the team.
I think so. And it just, every time you hear, I mean, Marty gets asked about him how many times a week? I mean, like, it's a lot, right? But the way Juraj is handling everything that's been going on, and the way that Martin St. Louis seems to trust himself in how to handle Slafkovsky. We heard about, them basically Marty basically saying, I don't know, we don't know if it's true for sure. Like we say sometimes, we're not in the room, right? But Marty trusts the process, and he trusts himself in how he's coaching Slafkovsky and how he's developing him, right? And it does seem like there's an increase in trust game by game, and it's all the details away from the puck, right? So all the results that, people from a distance are watching and aren't seeing from Slafkovsky, what they're missing is, that two-way game that he's developing and becoming a much stronger force to play against along the boards. And he's keeping his head up a lot more. We saw that last year where, he was an easy target in the first part of his career, in the first, 39 games that he played last season as an 18-year-old. As a 19-year-old, like Marty said, it's been very impressive to see him buy in, and actually you're starting to see the results of his development, not on the score sheet necessarily, but in the time on ice. You're seeing him get trusted in the situations that he wasn't trusted in before, and he's still 19. He's going to be 20 at the end of March. And it's impressive to see how cool of a head he's keeping. And then you put him with Nick and Cole, which we were all clamoring for. Maybe it's happening sooner than we would have expected, that he's playing on the top line with Nick and Cole, but it's happening. And not only is it happening, I mean, you look at the Corsi numbers, like I'm still becoming an advanced stats guy. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm still learning. I'm still trying to get better. Right. But you're seeing those numbers go up. You're seeing the opportunities, the chances, they're getting better. The assist on Caufield's goal, like just recently, right, against the Islanders. So you see little glimpses of the player that they drafted, and it's only happening within a month. And before this season started, and even in September and early October, it's like, should we send him to Laval? Should we send him to Laval? Well, he's still here. And as much as the NHL is not a development league, right now, Slafkovsky is developing at the NHL level, and it's going pretty well.
And it's because he's paying attention to those details, as you mentioned, Drew. And that's what Marty said this morning when talking about Slav. Once again, it was obviously a very hot topic here in town. Is this, again, just that complete player, right? But isn't that what leads to that winning hockey? It's not just being able to put the puck in the net. There's a whole game, as Marty says all the time, getting those shots. Is this all a part of getting those touches, playing the game the right way? And this is what we're really seeing in Slav. And this is why he was on the ice to finish the game against the Islanders, a position he's never been put in before, where he's on the ice. Montreal ends up getting the empty netter goal with him there as well. So it's really just so amazing to see. And like with any type of player, I feel guys that has success that is long lasting in the NHL, except for like the phenoms, the Connor Bedars, the Wayne Gretzky's of the world. It's like for any player that has that long-term success, their progression isn't going to be overnight. We're seeing a star player being born right in front of us. And I feel so lucky that we're getting a front row view of getting to see this progression. Okay, this is now what he's doing, kind of putting it all together. It's very logical for me, all the steps that he's taking. I think that's all that we're asking as Habs fans.
Yeah,
I think he's blocking out the noise. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I think he's really buying into the way that this process is unfolding for him. And he's blocking out the noise. He knows he's the number one guy. He's got a whole country watching him too, right? I mean, there's even added pressure for an entire country in Slovakia, right? So I think that, like Marty said, as a 19-year-old, how he's handling the development and the mental side of things, it is impressive.
Yeah, he's doing all the things that we wanted to see from him coming into the year. I know we said on the show, I'm sure you said similar things, like just seeing a step up from Slav is exactly what we wanted. And the start of the season maybe wasn't what we wanted, but now this sharp turn in development has been really exciting. And Jesse, you're bang on the nose. He's someone that has clearly put in a lot of effort to make the adjustments people have asked of him. And hey, that's one of the top traits you can ask for a future franchise star. But time to get into a bit of trade talk off of Slafkovsky. And there's a lot of stuff to talk about in Habs lines, but we got to talk a bit about this. And look, goalie trade has been maybe the top source of news for the Montreal Canadiens, at least over the past month. There's been so much news and rumors surrounding the Oilers, the Hurricanes, and Even I almost said Sacramento, the Los Angeles Kings. A few teams continue the search for goalies in the NHL's trade market, including the Hurricanes and Kings. The goaltending market has become hotter for a few reasons, said Elliot Friedman. The Canes put Ront on waivers. He cleared. He's been assigned to Hartford. They're looking around, and the Kings, now Phoenix Copley is out long-term. He's on LTIR. They might be looking for a backup, and another article links Cayden Primeau to them. They said Primeau would give the Kings another option for the backup role while Copley is sidelined, and if he performed well with Los Angeles, Primeau could even take away the backup job, as he has a .902 save percentage versus Copley's .870 so far. But if the Kings land Allen, they would give an experienced goaltender who's a proven 1B at the NHL level. And this is really interesting because to me, like, obviously Cayden Primeau is the more cost-effective choice, and if they're really convinced with Copley, or maybe you kind of have Copley and Primeau as your two backups, it could work. But LA is a team that I don't want to say has gone all in, but they're clearly one of the best teams in the NHL. They're one of the most complete teams. They play a style that maybe other people don't like to watch, including Habs fans, but they get wins. And just bolstering their goaltending could be big. So while I think Jake Allen, in a vacuum, just from a pure player perspective, ignoring the contract, maybe fits that team better to go alongside Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley, Primeau might be the more cost-effective option if they come knocking at Kent Hughes' door. What do you guys think? Like, who do you think of these two that LA could maybe go after more than the other?
It's interesting. Like, you know, I was a big Jonathan Quick fan for a little while. Like, other than Carey Price, I think Jonathan Quick, just the way that guy would, you know, not a big goalie,
No.
but did the splits, I think, like no other. Like, that guy could cover some net for a small guy. And I think that, you know, the Kings at this point, I think they would prefer more of a sure thing. And that would be a player like Jake Allen, a goalie like Jake Allen, a Stanley Cup winning goalie, you know, with the St. Louis Blues, a guy that started off this season okay. I mean, I saw him in Buffalo, the game where David Savard actually played on one skate and
Best shift this
played
season.
that crazy shift. I was behind the net for that
Oh.
shift. And like, I got to tell you guys, that was the most exciting part of the entire game, like legit. And Jake Allen continues to stand on his head against the Buffalo Sabres for whatever reason. So in terms of them, he's got their number. Buffalo fans behind me were certainly reassuring me of that. But in terms of Jake Allen, I think that he wouldn't, like, he knows he wasn't part of the long-term solution of this Canadiens team like two years ago when the rebuild started, right? So I think that if I'm LA, and given, you know, that I don't know if they've gone all in just yet, but they're pretty close. I mean, they're fourth in the Western Conference right now. They are playing not the most exciting brand of hockey, but it's working. And I just think that they would prefer more of a sure thing in a goaltender like Jake Allen. And if they can make the cap hit work, I think the Canadiens would have to probably eat some of that salary for Jake, just over 3.4 million-ish is where he's at. So I to me, if I'm LA, I would prefer more of a guaranteed thing with Jake. And with Cayden, I think the Canadiens actually like what they've seen from him to the point where they feel like maybe they can trust him, you know, to be the backup with Sam Montembeault at this point. I mean, I know it's the sample size still isn't very big, but there's been some big steps in confidence, not unlike Slafkovsky. You know, Cayden's in the window right now where it's like, you know, I don't want to say put up or shut up. That's not how I like to put it, but I do think that Cayden has shown that, at least right now, while Jacob Fowler is still developing and we're all excited about him, right?
For sure.
I think that Cayden could be the guy to trust in the 1B position for the Canadiens. And the way that they've kept them all in, and they're all in a positive mindset. Nobody's bipping at each other for ice time and for how many starts they're getting. I think Cayden, at least right now, still belongs in the Canadiens at this point.
Because we're still rebuilding, right? And we still don't know quite what we have, but he has shown enough, but like in a little bit more of a limited type of role, because you'd have to feel like, okay, if they're going with Montembeault and Primeau, Montembeault is going to be taking the lion's share, and Primeau just get in there, get him to kind of, you know, improve on his game slowly but surely, but absolutely. But I mean, this trade market is really heating up. Like, it was already hot to begin with. And then you have the LA Kings. They were already looking for a goalie. And then their backup, Phoenix Copley, gets injured for a month. So you have to feel like that's ramping them up to another gear. The Carolina Hurricanes, they were already looking for a goalie. They said they had enough is enough. They're making room now by putting Antti Ranta on waivers, right? So you have to feel like Kent Hughes is beginning a couple more calls as of late. And of course, we can't even forget about the Oilers still in this, who they must feel like now more than ever, okay, we're getting back in the playoff picture. You know, we might want to really make a move out of this. So it'll be interesting to see if something does happen before that roster freeze, which has happened this Wednesday, or if it's going to be after that December 28th date where we see a move coming, which you have to feel will be coming sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, the trade deadline is looming. I mean, as far away as it maybe seems now, it'll sneak up on us, right? The Christmas season, of course, with this trade freeze, you got to think teams are at least going to be talking. And yeah, again, if you're a team like LA or a team like Carolina, you want to get these wins. You want to be sure of yourself sooner rather than later. You don't always want to wait all the way to the trade deadline. Maybe for a guy like Monahan, who's been typically injury prone, maybe teams would wait to see if he maybe gets an injury before that. Yeah, I understand. For the goalie situation, you got to think the time for urgency is coming, even for a team like Edmonton, Carolina, LA, whoever it may be. You got to think maybe a trade will be coming sooner than we think for the Montreal Canadiens. But that'll do it for this special episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe, not only to this channel, but to DrewDekes' channel as well. Again, thank you, Drew, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Yeah, thank you to all the fans that watch all the way to the end. We'll leave Drew's information down below. I've been Josh Gosse for my co-hosts, DrewDekes and Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.